time for some R&R. This is for the readers and the real folk. This is for the readers and the real folk. This is for the readers and the real folk living from coast to coast. This is for the people. This is for the readers and the real folk. This is for the readers and the real folk. This is for the readers and the real folk living from coast to coast. This is for the people. It's time for some R&R.
Welcome, 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 my readers and real folk. I am your host, Monda Raquel Webb. Books, art, film, music, all together in one spot. Celebrating us right here, right now, every week. It's all art and it's all good because that's who we are and that's what we do. It's time for some R&R. So here we go. Today on Readers and Real Folk, we discuss the extraordinary personal account of award-winning journalist Karen Gray Houston and her family's involvement in the Montgomery bus boycott. We get some valuable tips for young artists from Black Art in America's own Najee Dorsey. And DJ Haas presents Human, a breathtaking performance featuring poet John Good, cellist Okori Johnson, and yes, visual performance artist Fahamu Peku. Stick around to the end because you don't want to miss this stunning performance. Karen Gray Houston is an award-winning journalist and multiple Emmy nominee whose career in broadcast news spans 41 years. She retired from WTTG-TV Fox 5 in Washington, D.C. in May of 2014 after nearly 20 years as a local news reporter. Houston worked at radio and TV. She was a correspondent, writer, and associate producer for NBC, Fox, ABC, CBS, and United Press International. Born in Montgomery, Alabama, Karen recently penned the memoir, Daughter of the Boycott, detailing her family's fascinating civil rights era legacy.
I was born in a hospital for colored people. It was in the Deep South, during a time when my people were victims of racial hatred, intimidated, humiliated, oppressed. My father and uncle had a low tolerance for being mistreated. Dad waged a very public battle against white police brutality, and his younger brother Fred fought segregated buses all the way to the Supreme Court.
I made a personal secret commitment. Finish law school, come back to Alabama, take the bar exam, become a lawyer, and destroy everything segregated I could find. I did know Mrs. Sparks was asked to get up to give her seat, that refused to give up her seat, and then politely let them arrest her.
The Montgomery bus boycott was a seminal moment in our nation's history. It actually jump-started the civil rights movement. The world was watching. In my book, you'll discover names you never heard before. Little-known stories about instigators who worked behind the scenes to change the racial climate of America. I was only 4 years old when the boycott began, but even at that young age, I sensed the injustice of segregation. Separate waiting rooms, white water fountains, restaurants for white people only. This is personal. I am proud of my father and my uncle for the major role they played in shutting down Jim Crow. This book is a tribute to them for helping to open doors of opportunity for me and countless others.
Gray Houston. Welcome to Readers and Real Folk.
Wanda Raquel, it's good to be with you, my friend.
Thank you. I know it's been a while since we've seen one another, but you have been busy.
I wrote a book.
So, I want to talk about the book, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But before we get into it, let's see. When you started doing research, it was around 2014, and we just had been through police brutality and the killing of Freddie Gray and Michael Brown and Eric Garner, and we have Breonna Taylor, and most recently George Floyd, who died at the hands of police. In the end of your book, you state, where do we go from here?
Wow, that's a big question. As a journalist, as I was working on the book and doing research, there was turmoil, racial turmoil in the country. Like you mentioned, it was 2015 when Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson, and Eric Garner in New York, and Freddie Gray in police custody in Baltimore. And those things were happening. And you know what? I had started writing a piece in an opinion column in Montgomery, Alabama, and it was sort of part of what I was doing for my research. But I had also interviewed my dad, Thomas Gray, before he died. And he told me stories that were in a way connected to the bus boycott, but I had no idea, and he didn't tell me as I was growing up, that in 1950, he led a protest against white police brutality. It happened, and it involved a bus. A friend of his, a guy named Hilliard Brooks, they were friends, they played street football together. And then they were both veterans of World War II. The guy was downtown one day trying to take a ride on a major street, Dexter Avenue, downtown Montgomery, and he got on a bus. And okay, Manda, he was drunk and disorderly. He was. The bus driver called the police officer over. The guy's name was Hilliard Brooks. He got off the bus. There was some kind of exchange between him and the police officer, and the police officer pulled out his gun and shot the man. Not just once, because the bullet, other people were struck by the bullet, and Hilliard Brooks died. My dad was outraged, and so he had been teaching other veterans. They had an AMVETS unit at the Black Catholic school, and Dad was teaching. Hilliard Brooks had been one of the vets who was getting some training over there. And Dad and the commander of that AMVETS unit said, hey, we can't let this just go unsolved or unchallenged. And so they wrote letters. They wrote a letter to the police commissioner and to the mayor and City Hall saying, we expect this white police officer to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And Manda, what happened? What usually happens? A police review board found that the shooting was justifiable. And so my dad and this guy, Ronald Young, said, hey, we can't let those guys get away with this. So they sponsored a protest march. They got signs that said ballots beat bullets, and they had hundreds of veterans march downtown, and they had what they called a march with a purpose. They marched downtown to the courthouse, which is where where you could register to vote, and they had people register to vote. But Hilliard Brooks' family got no justice. No justice, no peace. What can I tell you? And so we continue. And as I was doing the research, I was in the neighborhood where I lived as a child, and I saw these signs on people's front yards that said "Justice for Greg Gunn," and I went, "Who the heck is Greg Gunn?" Greg Gunn was a Black man who lived in the neighborhood, was at a card party at somebody's house. 2:00 in the morning, he's going home. A white police officer's driving through the neighborhood policing because there had been a rash of burglaries in the neighborhood. But this guy was leaving a party, going back to his house. The police officer encountered him. They had an exchange. The officer tased him, chased him, beat him, shot him like 5 times or something, and killed him. That was 2016. I was finishing up my book. Actually, I changed the end of the last chapter of my book because of what happened there. The white police officers legal defense team asked for a change of venue. And so they moved the case out of, the capital city of Montgomery to some rural town, Ozark. And shock, the white jury in that trial found the white police officer guilty, but not of first-degree murder. They found him guilty of manslaughter, but he was convicted, and I was surprised. And so for me, that was a glimmer of hope, but that was 2019, and here we are now with Derek Chauvin's knee on George Floyd's neck.
Yeah, I noticed that you mentioned, and I do want to get into the book, but you said your father said, this is in 1950, we should at least make some noise and let those white folks know cops can't keep beating and killing Negroes and get away with it.
Exactly.
The foresight, the visionary. And you say that you have inherited a history of family involvement in the civil rights movement, and which is evident as a daughter of the boycott.
And I am proud.
So I wanted for you to talk to us about why you wrote the book, and also what really struck me was the incident with your mom in 1957. So if you could tell our readers and real folk a little bit.
A lot of complicated reasons about why I wrote the book. First of all, my uncle, Fred Gray, wrote his own book. It's called Bus Ride to Justice. And he wrote about the Montgomery bus boycott in a whole lot of detail because he was there. He was the lawyer for Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, and for Claudette Colvin, a teenage girl who a lot of people know nothing about. I interviewed her at her apartment up in the Bronx. She's now ready to claim her place her rightful place in history. She refused to give up her seat to a white person in March of 1955, 9 months before the Rosa Parks situation. The bus driver called police officers in who dragged her off the bus and took her to jail. So that should have been a galvanizing moment for Montgomery. And my uncle saw it as a test case. She was his first civil rights case because he thought, this is perfect. And what happened? 2 months from then, everybody found out that little Claudette was pregnant. And they did not want the face of the movement to be a young, pregnant, unwed mother. And so it didn't happen for her then. So it happened for Rosa Parks. But Rosa Parks' case was, her legal case was of disorderly conduct, and it was moving through the local courts. And my uncle thought the only way that we were going to get any attention was for the case, for a test case to go through the federal courts. And so he had Claudette Colvin and 3 other Black women who had similar situations, refused to get up for white people. And he made them plaintiffs in his case that he filed in federal court that went all the way to the Supreme Court. And it was the case that struck down segregated busing. Why I wrote the book, it really was a tribute to my father and my uncle for their involvement. I want to say thank you to them, because had they not done what they did, I would not have had the opportunities that I had. I spent 41 years in jobs that I never could have dreamed of had there not been major change that was sparked by the Montgomery bus boycott.
So today's segment is, you may not be ready for prime time. So you're not filming right now, are you? Hey everybody, it's Najee Dorsey here at the Black Art in America Gallery and Najee Dorsey Studio in Columbus, Georgia. I learned that I wasn't ready for prime time when I took my first trip to Memphis to Willis Gallery, which was on Beale Street, one of the top galleries for African American art in the city, in the city, the largest city that was close to where I lived. And walked into Willis Gallery, had my art tucked up under my arm, didn't have an appointment, just walked on in, which is a no-no, one. And then he did give me a minute of his time, took a look at my work, and was definitely not impressed. So, I left there very disappointed after he shared with me that my work really wasn't about much, at that time. And, I left deterred, I was hurt, had to pick up my face off the ground. But a few days later, after reflecting, it just, gave me motivation to continue working and to continue going. I still was in Arkansas sending letters to a number of the preeminent African-American galleries of the time, Savaku Gallery in New York, Stella Jones in New Orleans, and Garbo, Hearn Fine Art in Little Rock, and sending them information about my work, asking them to consider me for a show or representation. And Stella was the only one that sent me a letter back. So it was just, the letter I got from Stella was a standard rejection letter. Thank you for, sending me this information. We can't, really do anything with it right now, but, we'll keep you in mind. Boop, file 13. While I couldn't, while I didn't have any success getting in the gallery, the beauty about this industry is that you can always find support along the way in so many different factions. Doing coffee house shows, smaller gallery shows. My first show at the coffee house, actually my first commercial show I recall, was in 1996 at the Long Branch Coffee House in Carbondale, Illinois. I did that show and I had roughly, I had the whole space, so I had about 25, 30 pieces on exhibit. Most of it was small works, about yay size or what have you. And then I had one large painting that was perhaps, say, a 30 by 40. And I never forget that moment when I got the phone call from the gallery saying, hey, somebody just left a check for $500. That's right, it was my first $500 sale in 1996. And I can assure you that I felt like I was on top of the world. The majority of the works that I was selling during that time, the smaller works, were retailing between $40 and $60. And I sold. I didn't say that I sold out. I mean, the show basically sold out. I ended up selling the majority of the work at that show. I mean, again, it was priced at $40 to $60, so it's entry level work for a brand new artist. But it still felt good. Yeah, as a new artist, a younger artist, my advice would be to, while we always want to reach out to the who's who in the contemporary art world or very established galleries, I would suggest giving some consideration to working with smaller galleries, some new galleries perhaps, because they're going to be brand new. They're looking to work with artists. They've got typically a younger clientele base that can only buy in a particular price point, generally speaking. And so you may be a perfect fit for working with a young gallery, with a new gallery. And then also give some thought to non-traditional spaces. Look at your community centers, look at your libraries, look at other places that are, not necessarily your white wall galleries, but it gives you an opportunity to present your work to the public, because at the end of the day, it's up to the public to decide how they're willing to engage with your work and perhaps support your work. And you just never know where their support may come from. Yeah, so one of the things that I would do to encourage artists is to look at doing pop-up shows. I mean, you gotta, in this day and age, you gotta take your career into your own hands. And so curate your own shows, come up with a theme, put a proposal together, reach out to a number of places, whether they're coffee houses, community centers, libraries, and look to put together a pop-up show. You'll be forced to handle all your marketing yourself, any expenses associated with any cheese or snacks that you may want to have. You'll be responsible for getting the word out to the list. Maybe you can leverage the list of the people that's currently that's there in the space that you're looking to work with. But get in control of your own life. That's always going to be my best advice. Do your own pop-up shows. They're great, even home shows. If you've got people that have supported your work in the past, reach out to them. If you've got a family member or a family friend that loves art, that maybe they've got a piece of your work, ask them to host a show of your work and invite their friends. Okay, art festivals are a great consideration too. It's a weekend where you get, promoters, they've got art lovers and collectors coming in, or just people who are just interested in getting out and about, taking a stroll, getting some jam and jelly and cotton candy. But you just never know who's going to walk through. It's a great way to get your work in front of an art buying audience, particularly if you're doing a quote unquote fine art festival. They're typically juried events. You have to apply months ahead of time and get selected in. But it's a way, the market has changed, and it's a great way to get in front of people who are interested. But the cool thing is you don't have the gatekeeper that's going to control whether or not you get your work in front of the public. Once you get selected into the show, there's typically hundreds of thousands of people that come to these festivals. Oftentimes they're looking to buy work, and they're looking for new artists. So the art festival may be one route you may want to consider. Florida was actually a great hub for doing shows, particularly early on in the career, because they have a great concentration of festivals that take place. What I found is that not every place in Florida is the best place to go. generally speaking, you know, you want to get down toward Miami, you want to go into Central Florida, you want to look at like Sarasota, Fort Myers. I mean, there's a number of shows that's got great reputations for people coming out to support the artists. While you may not be ready for prime time, my advice would be is just to focus on your craft, focus on your work, and focus on the business side of developing your career. But understand that your best work is going to be ahead of you. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed this particular talk and the tips are helpful. Did we leave anything out? Be sure to let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Sweet. Okay, gotcha. My foot falling asleep. Is it still recording?
Yeah.
Okay, so do I need to do that whole thing again?
Let's rock.
Take it.
Win, 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 win. That's right, my readers and real folk. This is a hostile takeover. So strap up for a ride on the R&R Express with your main man, DJ Haas. Special shout out to my web queen, Monda Raquel Webb, and to BlackArtInAmerica.com, celebrating 10 years as the online leader in Black visual art. Check it. Today we've got something special for you, my readers and real folk. It's called Hugh Men, and it's a stunning artistic performance featuring poet John Good, cellist Okori Johnson, and your favorite visual performance artist, the one and only Fahamu Peku. Now, Hugh Men speaks of our current moment and what it means to be Black in a society that too often sees us as less than human. You can't unsee this one, folks. So here it is, John Good, Okori Johnson, and Fahamu Peku in a compelling performance piece, Hugh Men. Check it.
They pretend that they can't see the we that we women and men still see. They pretend to only see minstrelsy and not a culture so rich that within our hieroglyphs still exists the keys to life's mysteries. They don't see lovers of music, of art, of words. All they see are people who have always been essential to the work, essential to picking up their cotton, their tobacco, their slack. All they see are hues, so all they see are blacks and Mike Browns and Freddie Grays. They're quick to gentrify you from your home, then tell you to stay in your place. And when we speak up, they use the lead to make us pipe down. Statistics say an unarmed person of color is being shot right now. What's clear is that when your wife meets you at the door in her robe, tears in her eyes as you're about to hit the road, and says, "Be careful, dear," it's because she knows you're being hunted, being stalked day and night. Ahmaud Arbery thought he was out for a jog, didn't know he was in a race for his life. Because in this life, they don't know what it feels like to grip the steering wheel with all your might when you see those blue lights ride up in your rear view. Because although you've done nothing wrong, you know they won't hear you and you might not ever be going home. That's why we try not to go off, because we know what's going on. We become dash cam, video, headline, poem. We become say her name, never again, hashtag. mourned. We're tired of being shot in the street, shot in our homes, shot in our sleep, shot on our lawns, shot by police, hands up, empty palms. We're tired of singing funeral songs and reciting funeral songs. We're tired, and we don't know how better to explain this to you. And to be honest, we're tired of trying to explain it through statistics, through ballistics, through hue, through history, through injustice, both old and new. We're sick and tired of being sick and tired. Fannie Lou Hamer spoke the truth. We're tired of watching our elderly bury our youth. We're tired of feeling hopeless, tired of Brian Kemp disenfranchising black voters. I'm tired because Oluwatoyin died while I wrote this. I'm tired because Rayshard Brooks died while I wrote this. I'm so tired I forgot to mention Breonna Taylor's name, and you're so tired you probably forgot to notice. Tired, but committed to the fight, come whatever. Because the same prism that was used to break the light apart can be reversed and used to bring the light back together. We are the light. Let's come back together. We are the light. We are in this fight together. We are the light. We're in this life together. We are the light. We are the light. We are the light.
Well, that does it for this edition of Readers and Real Folk. Remember, join us here at blackartinamerica.com for new episodes. And look, folks, if you like what you see and want the R&R team to keep bringing you the latest in books, art, music, and film, please become a monthly supporter on our Readers and Real Folk Patreon page. So show us some love. Go to our R&R Patreon page, sign up for as little as a few dollars a month. That's right. We're counting on you so you can keep counting on us. Until next time, I'm your R&R host, Monda Raquel Webb, wishing you art, peace, and love.
It's time for some R&R. This is for the readers and the real folk. This is for the readers and the real folk. This is for the readers and the real folk living from coast to coast. This is for the people. This is for the readers and the real folk. This is for the readers and the real folk. This is for the readers and the real folk living from coast to coast. This is for the people. This is for the readers and the real folk. This is for the readers and the real folk. This is for the readers and the real folk living from coast to coast. This is for the people.